You're listening to the A Bit From Within podcast with Felicia Marty. We are so much stronger than we give ourselves credit for. We are so much stronger, and I learned I can stand on my own 2 feet. I don't need somebody else to come with me in order to make it okay. It takes you out of your daily habits. It allows you to be in a place where you're a little bit more in that vibration of possible magic. Hey everybody, and welcome to a new episode of the A Bit From Within podcast. I'm Felicia, and I am so excited to be sitting here sharing a bit from within with each of you today. This weekend was a really busy weekend for me. Right now, I am spending a lot of energy on getting ready to launch some new things for A Bit From Within. We are getting a website designed, which is so exciting. I found a really lovely, amazing website designer who I get to collaborate with, and I have a new logo, and I'm getting ready to share all of this. I actually went out, Dave was able to take some pictures of me this weekend, which is always a little uncomfortable to be in front of the camera for me, but gosh, he did such a great job. We got some really cool shots, and I'm just sitting here with a lot of this, these new ideas and needing to create new content and this exciting opportunity to create more and to expand this. And so I'm feeling really, really excited. I also mentioned, last week about how it kind of feels like here we are with this full moon last week, and full moons are more of a time for winding down on projects and tying up projects as opposed to starting new projects. And I was feeling a little bit of this resistance with that, like, should I be putting this energy into this right now? And I realized that, there's a lot of ways to approach that and to let the energy of the lunar cycles and cycles move with you. And so I thought I'd talk about that a little bit as we enter this astro segment. Right now, the last quarter moon is upon us. So if you look up in the sky, you see a little half of a moon right down the middle. And usually at this time, we really are in this final, last quarter of the lunar cycle. So if you start with a brand new black, dark moon, new moon, as you're beginning, and more light is coming upon it, and you are growing, and you are manifesting your intentions, and you are creating, you get to the peak of this full moon, and here you are in all of this light. So you're either celebrating or you are seeing the entire full picture that you've been working on because you have all of the light shining right there. And then slowly you start to descend into the darkness. And these are the times when you start to, really cultivate the reality of what it was. And you start to think about okay, what worked here? What doesn't work? What do I need to let go of? Where do I need to trim the fat, so to speak? What are the final details of this? How can I tie things up? And 1 week from now, we'll be having a new moon in Sagittarius, which I'll share more about in a second. But here we are, last quarter moon, and as we're kind of wrestling with this idea, what does it mean to be working on new things while you're still in these moments where you almost feel like the call is to stop, to let go, to debrief. And what I've realized through working through this project the past couple weeks is that it's less about the actual phase. Of course, it's probably kind of fun if you can tie a new beginning to something. I'm not revealing any of the final product right now because it doesn't feel like it's time anyway. It's still because I'm still putting it all together, which is part of what this energy of this last quarter moon is about. So I've taken this leap. I kind of knew I was working towards these things. And then here we are. Actually, I think that the day that we had our first website design meeting was on the lunar eclipse, or it was the day before, and right during the full moon. And so here we are. This project is coming to realization. And now I'm spending some time really figuring out, okay, What do I want it to say? What is the direction for this? And I'm trying to also let go of a lot of the things that I thought it had to be, and also spend an equal amount of time not rushing it, not forcing it, not pushing it forward in a way that doesn't feel natural, but also sitting with it right now and really thinking like, what should this be? What does it need to be? Who am I trying to help? Who am I being of service to? How is this going to be fun for me for the long term? Because if I'm going to be doing this and committing to it, it has to have something in it for me. And it really has so far. And so I challenge you, like, sometimes when you're noticing these lunar cycles, you're going to notice that you're very in sync with it. And other times you're going to bump up against it in a way that feels like, how does this work? How does this fit in with this cycle? But I think there's an answer there. You just have to kind of notice it and allow what you've learned and what you feel is true to be the most important thing. So that's my thought on the last quarter moon. But you guys, next Monday, new moon in Sagittarius. And we have a ton of fire energy happening because Sagittarius is a fire sign. So new moon means that the moon and the sun are both in Sagittarius. And we are going to be having a solar eclipse on this day. And this solar eclipse is and actually we had a solar eclipse this summer, right? We had a solar eclipse in June. And it's this idea of huge new beginnings, new energy, like wheels in motion. Things are beginning. It's kind of like a regular new moon, but like on steroids. And because this is in Sagittarius, there's a really interesting Sag vibration to this new moon that, Sagittarius is a fire sign that almost sometimes presents a little bit as an air sign to me, because it can be very gregarious and philosophical and wanting to, have that kind of optimism, that joy, that hopefulness. And what's interesting is its opposition is in Gemini, which we know because we just had this full moon in Gemini. And Gemini is that air sign. And Gemini, while it's not always associated up front, like with optimism, it definitely has a little bit more of that playful, lighthearted energy. And so it's no wonder that there's a little bit of that with Sagittarius too. Now, Sagittarius can be a little bit more serious as well, a little bit more like religious, and that can be a little bit more the extreme of the Sagittarius energy. But I really think that this solar eclipse, new moon in Sagittarius is going to be this burst of like feeling hopeful. It's almost like it's kind of like the Christmas magic, right? Like when you watch those movies when you're like Miracle on 34th Street, and you're like, that would never happen, but it's a miracle. And it's Christmas, and it's that kind of vibration. It's like hopeful, full of belief, Christmas magic kind of. And so whatever that you are needing to believe in, or that you want to believe in, whatever your heart is trying to open to, whatever project or relationship or opportunity you're trying to open up to in your life, this is the time to believe in that and to take even micro steps towards moving in that direction. This is going to be really powerful. And so as we're in this last quarter moon preparing for this, you can even start to think about that in a way of, what's standing in my way? What do I need to let go of in order to say yes to that? Or what do I need to clear out in order to have space for that? So this is always a really good time to even create literal space in your home. If you need to go through some old closets or make room for something new, or I don't know, go through the kitchen drawers, wherever you feel like you have a little bit of clutter happening, anything that is standing in your way of clarity. That's what you want to address right now. So it could be the physical version of that in your life, in your home, in your car, in your office, or it can be emotionally inside of you. What do you need to clear out? What do you need to let go of? Who do you need to forgive? What do you need to address so that you can be more full, have more space, both emotionally, mentally, inside of yourself, so that you can show up for what you're trying to create and feel happy about. And so hopefully that feels kind of encouraging for you. And the last thing I'll share about this, you guys, we are in the middle of this interesting eclipse season around this Gemini and Sagittarius axis. So we had the lunar eclipse last week, Gemini and Sagittarius. We also had I believe it was a lunar eclipse in June. That was the Gemini Sagittarius full moon lunar eclipse that happened June 5th. And there will be several more that happen in spring this year. And so these are all connected in some way. So if you are having a lot of stuff that maybe started to come up in June, you could take a look at that theme and maybe notice how there's a thread running in now. And if you're not noticing it in your own life, maybe it could be interesting to look back through what was happening in the US in end of May, June this year. How are those issues still speaking to you, still working their way into your life, into your communities, into your social spheres, into our politics right now? And just know that that will continue. So yeah, more on that, because that's what's so cool about studying all of this and just being open to it, is realizing and allowing yourself to notice the patterns, to notice the cycles. And, I'm really excited because I'm still in my first year of being able to publish content on these lunar cycles. So we started, I believe, the first, I can't remember if it was a new moon or full moon guide. I think the first one was a full moon guide, and it was in April. And I'm excited to continue to work through the rest of this calendar and kind of begin the second round, because looking at it this way and sharing information about these lunar cycles and the zodiac and the signs that everything is happening, it's just been super eye-opening. And it's exciting once you go through it a couple times, but then to have a fresh new year and to continue to notice after you've, it's like right now what we're experiencing with Sagittarius connects to things we may have experienced in Gemini. And when you get to those oppositions, how do they feel different yet familiar? And how can you pull on things that worked well for you, like especially in regards to self-care? Because one of the things in all of the lunar guides that I publish is I talk a lot about self-care in terms of the element that is happening right now. So right now with Sun in Sagittarius, focusing a little bit more on self-care that is fire inspired. So dancing, movement, exercise, late night chat, sitting by the fireplace, things like that actually kind of invoke this spirit of fire to get you moving, to get things done, to have big ideas, to be social, those kind of things. It's just kind of an interesting twist on using the elements that are around you that are being kind of reinforced by the heavens and this time of year to help you with your own personal self-care. And it also will help create balance in your life, because if you're the kind of person that is very watery and you meditate a lot and you're very quiet and you only allow yourself to be in your feelings and journal and you're just keeping it all inside of you, well, you're not balancing that out by running that energy outwards. You're not, we all need to find the balance of the elements. So we need a little bit of that. And that one is interesting because I usually find that it's a little bit the water stuff is interesting because people who are very watery tend to stay very watery and they don't want to come out of their comfort zones. They want to kind of stay where they are, or they're maybe like triggered to be there a little bit more. That it just feels safer and cozier, like, right? But you also have the opposite where like people who are very fiery and they've got a lot of fire in their charts, they do not want to come out of that space. They want to stay going. They don't want to slow down to think about their feelings. They don't want to meditate. They always want to be on the phone, on the go, like listening to a show or a podcast or whatever. It's a little bit more of that combustible movement forward energy. And there's a place for all of that. And I'm all for embracing what works best for you, but remembering to find that balance, remembering to, if you never clean out your closets, to force yourself to get organized. If you are always the one talking, to remember to do some listening. If you are always on the go, remembering to slow down. If you are always in your feelings, remembering to get logical, right? There's always a balance to our preference, and how can we be stronger and better by embracing that? So, all right, you guys, I'll get off of that now because I could probably do an entire podcast episode just on the elements, and actually I should write that down because I am sure that would be a very interesting. Maybe I'll do that around once I finish this year of lunar guides and just with what I've continued to understand by working through these this year. But yeah, let's go ahead and dive into today's topic, which I haven't even introduced yet, but I'm really excited to right after the break here. So in this kind of spirit of Sagittarius energy and being a lover of travel, I thought that I would take a moment to talk a little bit about traveling and some of the travels that I've been on, and specifically the topic of what happens when you travel alone by yourself. And I wanted to share a little bit about this because with COVID right now, it is very, very difficult to travel. And, Dave and I have chosen to not travel ourselves right now while things are really crazy with the virus. And it's been a little hard and a little sad. I love to travel and I love to incorporate vacations and things into my life. And honestly, over the past several years, it's been a lot more difficult, especially with running a wedding photography business, because a lot of the travels that I have been on have been for weddings that have been in Texas or in Washington. But most of the time, I just have not made it a priority recently. And I have to own that. I have a suitcase full of excuses, which I won't get into right now. It's something that I should really dig into later. But then coronavirus happened right now, and it's been really tough. We were supposed to go to Maine this fall to photograph and video a wedding of one of our very dear friends. And that got pushed back to next year, which is awesome that it got rescheduled, but we definitely missed that moment. And of course, we're really sad because Dave's family, who lives all back east in upstate New York, we haven't seen them since 2 years ago. Yeah, 2 years ago. Feels like longer because just not having those moments to connect with all of them has been hard and sad. But I think the thing about travel is that when you get to go somewhere new, it expands your mind. It takes you out of your daily habits. It allows you to be in a place where you're a little bit more in that vibration of possible magic. And by magic, I mean just new energy coming towards you, new observations, new experience. Your mind is opened. Your heart is opened. You take that vacation breath, right? It's something I talk a lot about in yoga is like, can you tap into that vacation breath where you're like, right? It's like I can literally pack my suitcase, shut the door to my life that I'm living right now, take a break, and then when I come back, I'll have had some space. It's like a really healthy break from your life. And traveling in general it can be really fun, but also it can be a little stressful, right? Sometimes we talk about how you need a vacation from your vacation, whether you're visiting family or whether you're going on like a big backpacking trip or going to Disney World or something like that. Sometimes those things can not really be like relaxation induced, but a little bit more adventure oriented, which can leave you feeling like you need some rest after that. But what I really wanted to talk about specifically is the times in my life when I have traveled by myself. And it's funny because the first time that I ever traveled all by myself, I was in college. I was a senior in college, and I had so I think some of you know this about me, but my degree is in theater and film from the University of Colorado at Denver. And I was a little bit more on the theater side of things than film. Like I did take a couple film classes and like writing for episodic television and things like that. But the majority of my emphasis was in theater, in production development and direction. So directing for the stage, writing for the stage, producing, stage managing, those kind of things. And I really loved directing. Like I honestly, when I was in college, I really thought that would be my career path, obviously, which is why I was getting a degree in it. And so my senior year of college, I was able to enter into the Kennedy Center American College Theater Festival. Sorry, it's kind of a mouthful. In college, we just called it KCACTF. And it was really amazing because essentially we were given a script or like a portion of a script where we'd have to direct a scene. And so I had 3 of my really good friends at the time who were all great actors, me, and then our really amazing professor. We went up to Moscow, Idaho. It was kind of funny because we kept saying like, we're going to Moscow, but Moscow, Idaho for the regional competition. And that was really an amazing journey in itself because we had to fly into Tacoma to drive over to Idaho. And it was winter. It was really cold. I think it was like February. Yeah, it must have been like mid-February or early February. It was freezing there. I remember that part very, very vividly. And it's actually interesting because I'm really having to jog my memory with this because it's been so long since I have thought about this. And it's been like over 10 years. It's been 11 years, maybe 12 years this February. Oh my God, I can't believe I'm saying that out loud. And I can't believe that's even true, to be honest with you. 12 years. So those memories are packed in somewhere way back there. But essentially these festivals are super fun because you get to see live theater, you get to do seminars during the day where like you take big classes together, either in acting or lighting or whatever, like different projects. And we had a lot of fun, and competing was super fun to be able to have the actors go up there. Like with directing competitions, it's kind of funny because they are seeing your actors represent what you're doing, but then you also have to have this huge binder full of like all of your notes, your inspiration, your verbs, like what your direction, like a full breakdown of your script, your scene, what you are creating, your staging as far as like where the actors are moving, things like that. And so I ended up actually, crazily enough, we won that regional competition. And so because of that, I was given like they basically pay for your entire way to go to the National Theater Festival. And so that happened in April. So a couple months later, I was getting on a plane, but this time instead of going with my friends and being able to compete or anything like that, it's like you just go by yourself. And I had never been anywhere by myself before. And I was nervous, you guys. Like I was that kid who would be invited to sleep over at the neighbor's house with my friends when I was a kid, and I would call in the middle of the night and wouldn't go home. Like I could not do it. I was very scared. I did not go away to college. I lived with my parents when I was in college. There was many reasons for that. It was, but I didn't want to go away. Like I didn't go to summer camp. I was not a sleepaway kind of kid, and I don't really function that way. So I was really scared to go to Washington, D.C. for this KCACTF thing, this national thing. And I was going to have a roommate and meet all these people. And I probably wouldn't have done it if it wouldn't have been for the fact that I had won and it was such an accomplishment and all these people were excited for me to go and represent UCD. And I did want the opportunity to, but it took that being the thing that kind of pushed me to go for it. And it was one of the best experiences of my life. And it was then that I realized that when I'm traveling alone, that there's nothing to be scared of, because it is so rewarding. Like I just remember the most vivid thing for me about traveling alone is sitting on a plane with no one that you have to talk to or please or care about or journey with. And you just I usually bring my journal and a book and an audiobook, like those three things. And most of the time I spend kind of moving between an audiobook and then just journaling. And those moments to journal on a plane ride are some of the most epic of my life. Like, I feel like I've had some of the biggest revelations. It's almost as though the opportunity or this space just allows me to get to the heart of the matter in a different way, or to show up for myself in a different way. And, that being able to go there and meet new people, that was incredible. And the theater that I saw in Washington, D.C., oh my gosh, it was some of the best shows that I've seen in my life. In fact, after I finish recording this, I might have to go through some of my old journals and books to just remember what that was like. And I did remember that when I was at KCACTF in Washington, D.C., I was in this big room. Specifically, it was a director's kind of seminar. There was 7 other people who won regionally. Maybe there was 9. There was 9 of us who had won around the region. And we were all together. And I remember sitting in this seminar, and actually it's a little foggy now because I can't remember exactly what we were learning, but I remember it clear as day that I had this very big revelation in my head. It was kind of like a big spark that just, or a knowing that just came to me. And I remember it's like saying or feeling it very overwhelmed by this knowing, like, you are not going to do things like other people. You're not going to write the kind of stuff that other people write. You're not going to direct things that other people direct. You're not going to live the kind of life that other people expect you to live or to do it like other people. You're going to do things differently, and your entire purpose is to help other people realize that it is through being themselves that is the key, that they need to just be themselves. Encourage people to take care of themselves. Encourage people that they don't have to be other than they are to be happy, to be successful, to be aligned. Something like that. And that was huge for me. I mean, I literally remember that more than any other part of that trip. I was like, that knowing has never left me. And obviously my life has manifested in different ways since then, and I've gone on a lot of other journeys. And the only other time that I completely traveled by myself, I wish I would do this more, to be honest with you. And isn't that how it always is when we talk about trips and vacations? Is it kind of stimulates us to want to go and adventure. And I can't wait until COVID restrictions are lowered because of the virus being more contained and us knowing more, because I just need to get to the beach. I'm missing the beach so much. But the only other time that I traveled totally by myself was when I had a wedding in Washington, and I was photographing a wedding for one of my very dear friends. His mom was getting married, and so I had photographed their wedding and a lot of other big family moments in their lives. And so they were like, "Can you fly to Washington and photograph our mom's wedding?" And so, of course, I did. I was so excited to, and I flew there by myself, got a rental car, drove from Seattle to Port Orchard, which is over on the kind of other side of the bay or whatever. I don't know what you call it, the body of water. And that was another one where, like, I can very vividly remember being on the plane, and I was listening to, at the time, Brene Brown, the Power of Vulnerability. Amazing audiobook. All of her stuff is amazing, but especially that one is one of my absolute favorites. And that was a really interesting place in my life, because it was about 7 or 8 months after I had gone through a really, really hard breakup. And I was kind of right in the in-between. Dave and I were friends at that time and spending a lot more time together. And actually, I remember this very clearly too, that right before I left for this trip, I went over to TJ Maxx to see if I could get some new shirts to wear for photographing. And I had been texting with Dave at the time, and he had alluded to that he was at Costco, and we were up. I was like, "Are you at the Costco on this intersection?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "I'm at the TJ Maxx right here too." And so we met in the parking lot, and we must have stood there standing by our cars talking for like over an hour. And I remember, like, it was nothing happened, but something could have happened, like a kiss or something like that. And I remember that very, very clearly, because it was when I started to notice that I was thinking differently about Dave. And that whole trip to Seattle, I remember that trip as being very eye-opening for me to realize how I felt about Dave. Even though I wasn't totally ready to admit it, it was like a week and a half later, that after I got home, that things did start romantically between Dave and I. But yeah, it's interesting, because even that trip, just being able to go for a couple days and be somewhere new, and that one was a little different because I was welcomed into the home of my friends. So being able to land and then be with friends, but also had to have some space from them because I had my own car and they were with their own family. And I didn't want to intrude too much on that, and I hope that I didn't. But it felt like it's amazing to be welcomed into somebody else's house and to learn how they live together. Like, what are their holiday celebrations like? What do they talk around the table? Like, those kind of things. Like, that part was invaluable, just so, so special. And it made me want more of that in my future, to be able to welcome people into my house and to have people come over and to have them around our table. And honestly, sharing this right now it does make me a little bit sad as to how COVID has kind of changed this year and the ability for us to do that. But regardless, like, I'm going to be hopeful for the future and just know how amazing that felt, and know that when the time is right, I can't wait to do that myself. Because there really is something to that when you are traveling by yourself and you're able to be with others, the way that people bring you in, the way that their hospitality makes an impression on you, the way that you're able to show up fully as yourself, kind of without having to worry about, presenting yourself as a couple or balancing family dynamics or things like that. Just to be able to be yourself showing up it's a unique opportunity. It's a really, really special one. And that just goes to show you, like, traveling by yourself doesn't mean that you have to be by yourself the entire time or be with strangers. That part doesn't matter as much as the ability to take the journey, right? And I have one more example, and this time I didn't travel by myself. This time was when I went to Europe, and it was in 2015. It was October 2015. And I was with my ex-boyfriend, and first time I've ever been out of the country, well, besides like going to Mexico when I was a kid. But I was really excited for going to Europe, and I originally wasn't going to go. I had, it was the whole reason for this trip to Europe was there was this huge video game World Series type of thing. It was for League of Legends. I'm not kidding you guys. League of Legends World Championship that was taking place in Belgium and in Berlin. So Belgium was the semifinals, and then Berlin was the finals. And my ex was a broadcaster for esports. Like, he was very, very into it. And so essentially, like, he was like, should I go do this thing? And it was like, yeah, of course you should. You should definitely go do this. And then it turned into like, do you want to come with me? And I was like, I can't say no to going to Europe. Like, this is going to be amazing. And it was amazing. It was also very, very eye-opening and interesting. And even though I was with a partner during that trip, there's also a lot of moments that I remember feeling very alone and being alone. And some of that did not feel great, but there was other parts of it that I look back very fondly on. And there was one day when we went to Berlin. So I have, a lot of my family has done a really amazing job with genealogy. And so my whole life, or at least a large portion of my life, I have known that I have cousins who are my age that lived in Finland and Estonia, and lo and behold, when I was in Berlin, they were both there in Berlin. One was living there in the time, the other one had come in to visit, and they're sisters. And so I had messaged them, and we were like, should we meet up? Like, yes, let's actually meet up. And so my ex at the time, he went off to hang out and network with other broadcasters, and I wandered by myself for a couple hours in the city of Berlin before meeting up with my cousins who I'd never met before, who I had been pen pals with one of them a little bit when we were like preteens. And then of course we had kept in touch a little bit via like social media and Facebook, but they were essentially like strangers to me too. Like I didn't know these people. And so it was very interesting to be by yourself in a foreign country. And there's something about the fear, but also the autonomy and the independence. And I was with my camera. That's the true partnership. I took some amazing photos during that time. I allowed myself just to kind of get lost in this world. And I'm like, it literally felt like you are completely somewhere else. Like you could be dropped off on a different planet. I mean, obviously not that extreme because it feels like Earth, but just different. The art is different. The way they set up the streets is different. The playgrounds, the habits of the people walking the streets, things like that. It all just felt new and different. And then meeting up with my cousins was absolutely amazing. Like, they're both hilarious, bright, just brilliant women. And to meet up with them, and we went and got these like Korean tacos, and there was I just remember there's like the most amazingly adorable dog inside of this restaurant that we had gone to. And then we went and did like some shopping and hanging out. And then we ended up meeting up with one of their husbands, and going to this, and Alec, actually my ex came, and we all had dinner together at this big Vietnamese place, eating Vietnamese food in Berlin. I mean, it was so fun and different, and it was an amazing adventure. And that day was a big day for me, just realizing, all of these examples that I've talked about, these different times I've traveled alone, one of the biggest things that it reminded me, is a big lesson for me, is that I can stand on my own 2 feet. I don't really need reassurance from other people. I don't really need to rely on being with somebody. And I can fool myself with that a lot, because I spend a lot of my life thinking I'd rather be with somebody else. I'd rather talk on the phone while I'm driving alone in the car. I'd rather have someone come with me on an adventure than to be alone. And, it kind of goes with what I've shared recently about remembering when I went to Path of Love, where I did do that by myself too. That I didn't think that I would be okay if I couldn't talk, right? Like, I didn't think I could be in the silence. But we are so much stronger than we give ourselves credit for. We are so much stronger. And I learned I can stand on my own 2 feet. I don't need somebody else to come with me in order to make it okay. In fact, I can even find how strong I freaking am and feel my power and be able to imagine what else I can do, to feel my feelings fully, to expand completely, to not have to minimize myself, or, because I have a lot of codependent behaviors, like constantly acquiesce and change everything I'm doing or thinking or how I'm operating to fit how somebody else needs me to be. And those are important moments for all of us. And so I challenge you to reflect on the times that you've traveled by yourself and what some of your favorite parts were, and how can we collectively kind of lean into that and pull some of that energy into our daily lives. How can we have those moments where we feel like we're flying solo, where we're full of that excitement and new energy and that vacation breath, and remember that we can do things ourselves and be strong and be open to opportunity and be influenced by what's around us. So if this resonates with you, I would love to know your stories of when you traveled alone. Maybe you can even post a little short thing on Instagram and tag me in it, or shoot me a message or something like that, because I would love to be influenced by your stories of traveling alone too. And yeah, you guys, until next time. Next time we'll have just passed through this beautiful new moon. So I wish you some great new energy coming up. And this week, take that time to tie up loose ends. All right, you guys. So as we end each episode, I draw a card from a different deck of cards. This time today, I'm pulling from the Wild Offerings deck of Tasha Silver. So I'll just give a little shuffle right here. And the card that I just drew is True Offering. And the prayer is, may I release the fears, illusions, and addictions that keep me from my true offering. May I relax into your plan, trusting that the next steps will always be shown. Use me, love. Use me for the highest. I am yours alone. Wow, I love that. And it's so right on with what we were just talking about too, because this could be the prayer for when you travel by yourself, right? Like, may I release the fears, illusions, and addictions that keep me from my true offering. It's almost like that's what each of us are bombarded with every single day. But sometimes when you step onto that plane or into that car, if you're going on a road trip or something, it's easier to leave those things behind and go for that true offering. Also, when you travel, there has to be that willingness to kind of relax into the plan. Like, you have to have a plan, you have to go, you have to readjust, you have to do. And usually you're a little bit more open to receiving those signs that you're on the right track. So I love that as a way that we can focus on that prayer in our daily life, to be in the spirit of travel, even when we're at home living our lives. So yes. All right, you guys. Hopefully that inspires you and connects with a little bit within you. Thanks so much and have a great week.